Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to Artificially Literate.
hmm
This is the space where we really try to dig into books, films, big ideas, just meet them with some deep thought and, well, curiosity. Our mission here is always to journey into these profound narratives, these cultural moments, and sort of peel back the layers. We want to understand not just the literal meanings, what's on the page, but also the philosophical stuff running underneath. We're here to offer you some thoughtful takeaways, help you reflect, learn, maybe even see the world a little bit differently. So whether you're a huge story lover or just seeking some meaning, this is definitely your space.
Absolutely. And today, wow, we are taking on a titan, a really extensive deep dive into one of the most iconic, enduring, and frankly just heartbreaking tales ever written, William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. It's just this timeless exploration of love, hate, fate, youthful passion. And even though it was written, over 4 centuries ago, it still resonates with, honestly, startling relevance today.
It really does.
It gives us this mirror, doesn't it, to look at our own societal divisions, the impulsiveness of youth, and the just devastating cost of inherited hate.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Let's unpack this with a line that, it sets the entire tragic stage right from the get-go. As the chorus famously tells us in the prologue, 2 households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene, from ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean.
Wow.
Just that opening, for me, it just slams you with the central conflict, doesn't it? Before you even meet Romeo or Juliet, deep down, this isn't going to end well. Feels almost like a spoiler given right up front.
It totally is, and the sheer power of that prologue is just immense. It's such a quintessential Shakespearean move, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right from the start, he tells the audience exactly how it ends. A pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured piteous overthrows doth with their death bury their parents' strife. And what's fascinating here, truly fascinating, is that even though you know the tragic end, the journey itself stays incredibly compelling.
Right. You're still hooked.
Exactly. And this immediately throws up a fundamental question for us and for you listening. Does knowing that tragic end change how we perceive the characters' choices? Or does it just reinforce the inevitability of their, star-crossed fate? Are they really just victims of some inescapable destiny, or do their own actions, their impulsiveness, their youth, does that contribute just as much, maybe even more, to their downfall?
That tension is key, I think.
It really is. That tension between free will and predetermined fate is a thread woven right through the entire fabric of the play. It kind of invites us constantly to weigh how much responsibility lies with the characters themselves versus these, cosmic forces seemingly stacked against them.
So yeah, with that ominous prologue still kind of ringing in our ears, Shakespeare just plunges us straight into the chaos. Act I, Scene I. Starts with servants, Samson and Gregory.
Yeah.
And it's almost darkly funny how quickly this escalates into a full-blown public brawl right there in the streets of Verona.
It happens so fast.
Yeah, you have Samson saying, "Gregory, on my word, will not carry coals." Now, for anyone maybe not familiar with that idiom, to carry coals basically meant putting up with insults, suffering humiliation without fighting back. It was seen as submissive.
Right.
So when Gregory shoots back, "No, for then we should be colliers," meaning coal carriers, they're doing this almost playful, but actually deeply aggressive, back and forth about pride and honor. And that, of course, leads straight to Samson's infamous bite my thumb gesture.
Ah, yes. The thumb biting.
And that gesture, biting your thumb, was a hugely contemptuous, almost obscene insult back in Shakespeare's time. It was basically a direct challenge to a duel.
Wow. So it's not just some minor squabble between servants. It's an immediate, visceral shift from, verbal sparring to full-on physical combat. It's so indicative of the simmering hatred just bubbling right below the surface.
You feel it straight away.
You do. And Samson's casual cruelty, threatening Montague men and even the women, it sets the tone for a society where this animosity is just ingrained, where violence isn't just accepted, it's almost expected as the way you defend your honor.
Yeah.
This isn't about a specific issue or grievance, it's about the mere existence of the other family. It's like a societal sickness, and it permeates every single level, from the lowest servant right up to the noble lords. It really forces you to reflect. How do these seemingly petty little provocations ignite such intense violence when a society is already just ripe with this deep-seated hatred? And what lessons does that hold for any community or even nation consumed by these kinds of tribal divides today?
It's stark, isn't it? And then almost immediately we get the first attempt at reason trying to intervene. Benvolio, whose name actually means goodwill, which is fitting,
Perfect name.
Right. He steps in trying to keep the peace, but his efforts are just immediately violently shut down by the entrance of Tybalt.
Ah, Tybalt. Yeah, he's basically pure distilled hatred walking around on two legs.
He really is.
His entrance is just explosive. What drawn and talk of peace, I hate the word,
Yeah.
as I hate hell, all Montagues and thee. His whole identity seems inextricably linked to this animosity. He actively looks for conflict.
Yeah, he thrives on it.
He defines himself by hating the Montagues. It embodies this idea that for some people, hate is their purpose, it's their driving force. He's not really a nuanced character in that way. He's the personification of the feud itself. And this leads us to consider, how does this kind of inherited animosity, this deep-seated, almost tribal hatred, actually shape someone's identity and their actions? Are we sort of born into these roles or expectations based on our family, our community, our nation? Or do we ultimately choose them? Tybalt's tragedy, I think, is that he seems to have almost no choice but to embody the rage he was born into.
And it's this absolute chaos, this casual, almost endemic violence that finally draws in the heads of the households. Old Capulet and Montague, they're both ready to jump into the fight themselves until Prince Aeschylus finally arrives.
Yeah, the authority figure steps in.
And he has clearly had enough. He declares, 3 civil brawls have thrice disturbed the quiet of our streets, and then threatens death for any future disturbances. It's a stark, desperate warning from the top.
The prince's intervention really shows both his power and his, profound frustration, doesn't it?
Totally.
He's essentially the last line of defense for order in a city just consumed by irrational hate, and you feel he's almost helpless. This brings up a crucial question. What does it say about the role of authority in trying to control these long-standing social divisions? Why is it so incredibly difficult for an external authority, even one with the power of life and death, to actually quell internal hatreds that have festered for generations?
Good question.
It suggests that real peace can't just be imposed by decree or threat, right? It has to be cultivated from within. It needs a monumental shift in mindset, which Verona, as we see, learns only at a terrible, terrible cost. The prince's frustration is kind of a mirror for any leader grappling with these intractable social or political divides.
Now, while all this civic unrest and street fighting is boiling over, Romeo is conspicuously absent from the brawl.
Yeah, where's Romeo?
Exactly. His father, Montague, describes his son's artificial night and his self-imposed isolation. He avoids daylight, shuts up his windows, locks fair daylight out, and makes himself an artificial night. He's just moping in the dark, basically, in his feelings.
And this is where we first meet Romeo, right? Immersed in this really melancholic, almost performative state. He's suffering from unrequited love for Rosaline, and he's lamenting with what we call classical Petrarchan cliches.
Right, the whole trope.
Exactly. Those exaggerated, often self-pitying expressions of unrequited love. It's almost like a performance of suffering, which was really popular in Renaissance poetry. He describes love as, oh, brawling love, oh, loving hate, and smoke made with the fume of sighs, choking gall and a preserving sweet.
Mm-hmm.
This offers a really fascinating contrast for us. Is Romeo truly in love here, or is he, as Friar Lawrence suggests later, simply in love with the idea of being in love?
Oh, that's a great point.
His language here feels almost like self-indulgent misery, a rehearsal for emotion rather than genuine deep affection. It stands in such stark contrast to the profound transformative love he'll experience later with Juliet, which strips away all those poetic cliches and feels much more about genuine, almost existential connection. It prompts you to consider, how often do we mistake the idea of a feeling for the feeling itself, especially when we're young?
Benvolio, heir of the pragmatist, the good friend,
Yeah.
tries to counsel Romeo. He tells him, examine other beauties. Classic advice.
Yeah, plenty of fish in the sea.
Basically. But Romeo, in total classic lovelorn fashion, rejects this completely. He claims looking at others would only make Rosaline's beauty seem exquisite and question more. He's almost clinging to his melancholy, like he's reluctant to let go of this familiar sadness.
He certainly seems caught in that familiar pattern of romantic angst, doesn't he? For him, Rosaline represents the perfect object for this kind of melancholic affection, not necessarily a person he deeply knows or connects with beyond maybe her looks. His refusal to look elsewhere isn't really fidelity. It feels more like clinging to a comfortable, if painful, emotional state. It suggests a certain immaturity, maybe, a romanticizing of sorrow.
Okay, shifting gears pretty dramatically now, we move over to Capulet's house, where a grand feast is being planned.
Right, the party.
And it's here that Paris, described as a kinsman to the prince, seeks Juliet's hand in marriage.
This scene introduces us to Juliet's very constrained circumstances, but also Capulet's surprisingly nuanced initial stance on her marriage. At first, he seems somewhat progressive, telling Paris, "My will to her consent is but a part," implying Juliet's agreement is actually essential.
Which sounds good on the surface.
It does, but this is still firmly within the rigid societal norms of arranged marriages common in that era. And Juliet's extreme youth, she's not yet 14, is a huge factor here. So while Capulet expresses a desire for her consent, the underlying patriarchal structures mean her father still holds the ultimate undeniable authority over her marriage. Her consent, despite his nice words, feels more like a nicety than an absolute requirement. This reveals a tension, I think, between a father's maybe genuine love and the societal expectations, a tension that will ultimately lead to disaster. It makes you ask, how much personal agency did individuals truly have within such rigid social frameworks? And how do those historical constraints maybe echo in contemporary debates about individual freedom versus family or societal pressure?
And what's truly fascinating, almost a cruel twist of fate, is how sheer mischance, or maybe what the prologue calls their star-crossed destiny, plays a hand in bringing these two together. Romeo and Benvolio get their accidental invitation to the Capulet feast because Capulet's servant, who's illiterate, can't read the guest list, and just happens to ask Romeo for help reading it.
Incredible moment.
It's such a small, mundane detail, yet it's the pivot point for absolutely everything that follows.
It truly is. This moment really highlights the profound dramatic irony and the delicate, almost absurd balance of chance that steers the play towards its tragic end. Romeo, who's just looking for a distraction from his pining over Rosaline, unwittingly finds his true love, his ultimate destiny at the enemy's house. This tiny, seemingly insignificant moment with an illiterate servant creates this massive ripple effect that changes the entire course of the story. It makes you consider how often in life major events hinge on tiny, uncontrollable details or just serendipitous encounters. And it lets us draw immediate parallels between Romeo's initial unrequited love for Rosaline and Juliet's impending, likely forced marriage to Paris. Both are in these constrained situations regarding love, setting the stage for their radical, desperate choice to defy those constraints.
Now, before the feast itself, we get this really intimate peek into Juliet's world through the eyes of Lady Capulet and, of course, the nurse in Act 1, Scene 3. The nurse's body, rambling memories about Juliet's childhood are fantastic comedic relief, honestly, full of this earthy, almost coarse humor.
She's great.
She is. But they also serve as this stark contrast to Lady Capulet's very cold, pragmatic view of Paris. She describes him as a precious book of love who just lacks a cover. For Lady Capulet, it's clearly all about appearances, social standing, and status.
Yes, and we immediately see three really distinct female perspectives on marriage, each a product of their station and their experience. You've got the nurse's earthy practicality, rooted in physical traditional expectations, seeing marriage mainly through the lens of childbirth and, well, a good physical match. Then Lady Capulet's social ambition, her desire for an advantageous match to elevate the family's status. And then there's Juliet's initial, almost childlike reluctance. She declares, "It is an honor that I dream not of."
Right, she's not even thinking about it.
Exactly. She hasn't even really considered marriage, let alone to someone she doesn't know or care for. It powerfully underscores how little agency young women, especially noble women, had in matters of the heart, how their lives were often just predetermined by the men around them. This scene really establishes the backdrop against which Juliet's radical choices later will stand out so sharply.
So finally, the moment arrives. Romeo and his masked friends get to the Capulet feast. Despite Romeo having this ominous feeling, I fear too early, for my mind misgives some consequence yet hanging in the stars. He feels something bad is coming.
That sense of foreboding.
Yeah, he's got this deep premonition, but he goes anyway, compelled by forces he doesn't quite get.
And just before they go in, Mercutio delivers his wild, fantastic Queen Mab's speech. It's this incredibly vivid, imaginative, but ultimately quite cynical and dismissive take on dreams and fantasy.
It's amazing poetry.
Oh, it is. He describes Queen Mab, the fairy's midwife, as she gallops over men's noses as they lie asleep, her wagon spokes made of long spinner's legs, and how she makes people dream of what they desire. Lovers dream of love, lawyers of fees, soldiers of cutting foreign throats. It's a brilliant showcase of Shakespeare's verbal skill. But on a deeper level, how does Mercutio's chaotic cynicism contrast with Romeo's sort of burgeoning romanticism, which he's been trying to shake off? Mercutio's speech is essentially a deconstruction of romantic illusions, right? A stark warning against the dangers of fantasy and the self-deception of dreams. It foreshadows their very different understandings of reality and passion. Mercutio's grounded in this harsh, earthly wit, while Romeo is soaring in these poetic, almost spiritual ideals. Mercutio is basically saying dreams are nothing but vain fantasy, just the product of an idle brain.
Then it happens. Romeo sees Juliet for the first time across the crowded room, and it's instantaneous. A sudden, blinding revelation. He exclaims, "Oh, she doth teach the torches to burn bright."
Beautiful line.
And then, maybe most tellingly, did my heart love till now? Forswear it, sight, for I ne'er saw true beauty till this night. Just like that, he completely, utterly forgets Rosalind. Gone.
It's the quintessential love at first sight moment in literature, isn't it? But I think it's more profound than just simple infatuation. While Romeo's quick abandonment of Rosalind might seem superficial at first glance,
Yeah, it does seem a bit quick.
it does, but this moment marks a really profound turning point for him. Shakespeare masterfully shows Romeo's journey from that self-indulgent, almost performative misery over Rosaline, like a rehearsal for emotion, to a genuinely transformative, all-consuming passion with Juliet. Notice how Romeo's language instantly shifts. It goes from the conventional, almost cliché Petrarchan laments for Rosaline to this soaring, almost liturgical verse when he describes Juliet.
That's a great observation.
This isn't just hyperbole, it's Shakespeare showing, through the very sound and structure of Romeo's lines, the instantaneous, almost sacred quality of this new connection. It strongly suggests that Romeo wasn't truly in love with Rosaline, but was maybe just practicing the act of being in love, kind of preparing himself for the real thing. This love for Juliet is immediate, overwhelming, absolute. It strips away all the pretense.
And their first meeting, their iconic first kiss, is this beautiful, almost spiritual verbal dance. Romeo calls himself a pilgrim, and Juliet a saint. Their lips meeting in this sort of sacred act, it immediately shows their profound, almost mystical connection, like a shared language that transcends the everyday world around them.
It's remarkably intimate and deeply poetic, isn't it? They communicate in these shared metaphors, constructing a kind of sacred space for their connection, even amidst this noisy, crowded feast. It signals a bond far beyond the superficial, hinting at the soul-deep resonance between them. Yet the tragedy truly starts to unfold when the nurse, just moments later, shatters this idyllic bubble. She reveals their identities. His name is Romeo, and a Montague, the only son of your great enemy.
Ugh, the crash back to reality.
Exactly. It's a swift, brutal dose of reality, a collision of their brand new love with the ancient, unyielding hatred of their families.
And Juliet's immediate reaction, her realization, it just encapsulates the entire central conflict of the play, doesn't it? My only love sprung from my only hate. Too early seen unknown and known too late. It's just a devastating recognition of their impossible situation.
That line, my only love sprung from my only hate, is just crushing in its irony, isn't it? The object of her deepest affection is simultaneously the object of her family's deepest hatred. This line perfectly sets up the central, seemingly insurmountable conflict they face. It's not just a personal struggle, it's a conflict imposed by these overwhelming external forces, the social inheritance that dictates who they should love and who they must hate. It forces you, the listener, to consider how often our own desires clash with the expectations or prejudices of our families and communities, and the painful choices that can arise from those conflicts.
My only love sprung from my only hate. Too early seen unknown and known too late. Moving into Act 2, Scene 2, we find ourselves in Capulet's garden, home to arguably the most famous love scene in all of literature, the balcony scene. Romeo, unable to just leave the Capulet estate, utters those immortal lines as he gazes up at Juliet's window. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. He's completely captivated. Her very presence seems to transform his entire world.
Romeo's poetic adoration here is just full of soaring hyperbole, isn't it? He elevates Juliet to this celestial, almost divine status. He sees her as the sun that can kill the envious moon, suggesting she completely eclipses all his previous melancholic affections for Rosaline. What does this intense, almost overwhelming idealization tell us about the nature of their burgeoning love? It feels like it's not grounded in the everyday reality of a balanced relationship, maybe, but in this ethereal, passionate vision. It speaks to the all-consuming, transformative power this new love has for Romeo. It completely eclipses his previous infatuation. It's a love that burns so brightly it feels like it threatens to consume everything around it.
And then Juliet delivers her powerful soliloquy, unaware that Romeo is hidden below her balcony. Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name.
Yeah.
Or if thou wilt not be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. She's wrestling with the very core of their conflict, the arbitrary nature of their family's hatred.
This is truly the philosophical heart of the play, I think, crystallized in her famous lines. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet.
So powerful.
It is. Juliet argues that a name, a label, is merely an arbitrary convention, totally separate from the inherent essence or, perfection of a thing or a person. Romeo, the person, is lovely, regardless of his family name, Montague. She's reaching for a truth that exists beyond societal constructs. This forces us to confront a really timeless question, one that feels especially relevant today with identity politics and social divisions. To what extent are we truly defined by our labels, our family, our nationality, our social status, our chosen groups, versus our true individual selves or inherent worth? Juliet, maybe even more than Romeo at this point, seems willing to transcend these imposed boundaries for love. It suggests a profound insight into the arbitrary nature of human conflict and prejudice. She sees the person, not the label.
Their exchange of vows is incredibly rapid, almost breathtakingly so. Juliet, despite her powerful declaration of defiance, actually shows a touch of wisdom, warning Romeo not to swear by the inconstant moon, fearing their love might prove just as variable.
A moment of caution.
Right. But then she yields, saying, "My bounty is as boundless as the sea. My love is deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite." And they agree to marry, right then and there, driven by this urgent, overwhelming passion.
The intensity and the sheer speed of their love are striking, aren't they? Especially when you contrast it with the long-standing, seemingly immovable hatred between their families. It's almost as if the force of their love is a direct reciprocal reaction to the destructive force of the feud itself. It begs the question, is this love powerful enough in its boundless nature to actually overcome the entrenched animosity? Or is its very intensity what makes it fragile, prone to the violent delights that Friar Lawrence later warns about? The play constantly asks us to weigh the transformative power of personal connection against the crushing weight of societal division. Their haste, while incredibly romantic, also feels like a ticking clock.
This intense, urgent love leads them straight to Friar Lawrence. He's a spiritual guide, a botanist. We first see him collecting herbs in his cell, reflecting on nature's duality. Virtue itself turns vice being misapplied, and vice sometimes by action dignified. He understands that delicate balance of good and evil in everything.
The friar's role here is so complex and absolutely crucial. What's particularly insightful is his initial reaction to Romeo's sudden switch from Rosaline to Juliet. He chides Romeo, accurately seeing that his love for Rosalind was doting, not for loving. A superficial infatuation, not real affection.
He calls him out on it.
He does. However, despite his initial skepticism and his wisdom, he quickly agrees to perform the marriage. And not purely for love's sake, but for a greater, more pragmatic purpose. For this alliance may so happy prove, to turn your household's rancor to pure love.
The big gamble.
Exactly. This poses a profound question for us. Does his hope, this noble intention to end the feud, truly justify the secrecy and the inherent risks involved in marrying two teenagers from warring families without their parents' knowledge? He's a man of God, right? A moral compass for the community. Yet he chooses deception and manipulation, convinced he can somehow orchestrate events for a greater good. It makes us consider the ethical implications of these well-intentioned interventions that rely so heavily on secrecy and, subterfuge.
The nurse also plays a key role here as an intermediary, carrying messages back and forth between the lovers. Though she does it with her characteristic playful delaying tactics when she brings the news back to Juliet. Adds a bit of humor.
Yeah, she makes Juliet wait for it.
She does.
Yeah.
But it also draws out the anticipation, which ultimately leads to the secret arrangements for the wedding.
Yes, the nurse's comedic delay, her exaggerated weariness, it highlights the urgent, youthful passion of Romeo and Juliet against the slower, more cautious, albeit hopeful, intervention of the adult friar. The adults, in their attempts to help, inadvertently contribute to the accelerating pace towards tragedy through their secrecy. They believe they're controlling the situation,
Right.
but their actions just compress the timeline and amplify the potential consequences. It's a classic example of how attempts to exert control through hidden means can just unravel unpredictably.
And so the wedding itself in Act 2, Scene 6. And here, Friar Lawrence issues his crucial prophetic warning, a line that almost feels like a direct address to the audience. These violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die like fire and powder, which as they kiss consume.
Chilling.
Therefore love moderately. Long love doth so. Too swift arrives as tardy as too slow.
This is arguably one of the most critical and often quoted lines in the entire play, isn't it? A chilling forecast. It's not just a warning about impulsiveness, it's Shakespeare's profound commentary on the implications of acting too quickly or with extreme, unbridled passion, even for a good cause like love. It raises a pivotal question for us. Does this speak more to the play's theme of an unalterable fate, or does it serve as a direct indictment of the character's own impulsiveness and lack of moderation?
Or both.
Or maybe both, yeah. The friar, despite his wisdom, seems unable to truly temper their youthful impetuosity. Perhaps because their passion is simply too strong to be contained by caution. It suggests that even the most beautiful, intense emotions, when they're untempered by foresight or restraint, can lead directly to destruction. It feels like a profound indictment of the belief that the end justifies the means, when those means are cloaked in manipulation and secrecy.
This fiery passion, unfortunately, soon collides head-on with the simmering hatred in Act 3, Scene 1. We're back on the tense streets of Verona. Mercutio and Benvolio encounter Tybalt again, and Mercutio, ever the provocateur, never one to back down, refuses to budge for no man's pleasure.
Mercutio is just an absolutely brilliant character. He acts as such a dynamic foil to Romeo. His sharp wit, his cynicism, his readiness to fight, his vibrant language. He represents another aspect of the volatile masculine culture of Verona, one that embraces confrontation and thrives on this verbal jousting that so quickly devolves into physical violence.
He loves the wordplay.
He does. He sees the world and love with a much more cynical, grounded eye than Romeo, which makes his tragic end even more poignant, I think. He lives by a different code of honor, one that demands immediate satisfaction and retribution. He's the voice of harsh reality, which is maybe why Romeo's idealism about love later seems almost jarring by comparison.
Tybalt, of course, renews his challenge to Romeo, calling him a villain. Romeo, now secretly married to Juliet and trying desperately to maintain peace, tries to express love for Tybalt, of all people. He says, "I love thee better than thou canst devise, till thou shalt know the reason of my love." He's trying so hard to diffuse the situation, honor his new family tie without revealing it.
The dramatic irony here is just immense and heartbreaking, isn't it? Romeo is trying to explain his new familial bond without giving away the secret marriage, while Mercutio completely misunderstands Romeo's response as calm, dishonorable, vile submission.
He thinks Romeo's being a coward.
Exactly. Mercutio, believing Romeo is acting cowardly and bringing shame upon their group, steps in to defend his friend's honor. And in doing so, he inadvertently sets the tragic chain of events in motion. This highlights how secrecy, even with good intentions, even with the most noble aims, can lead to devastating misunderstandings and completely unintended consequences. Romeo's attempt at peace is seen as weakness, and that perception fuels the next tragic step.
This misunderstanding leads directly to the brutal duel between Mercutio and Tybalt, and Mercutio receives his fatal wound. His dying curse, "a plague of both your houses," is surely one of the most famous and chilling lines in all of literature.
Oh, absolutely. And that dying curse extends far beyond the immediate characters involved, doesn't it? It implicates the feud itself, and by extension, the entire societal structure that fosters such hatred and senseless violence. Mercutio's death is the true catalyst, the point of no return that ignites the final, irreversible descent into tragedy. It's not a private affair. It's a public tragedy born of this deeply entrenched social pathology. Mercutio, this witty, vibrant character, becomes a sacrifice to the sheer senselessness of the feud. That line forces us to ask, what inherited grudges or societal biases do we allow to fester in our own communities, and at what cost? It's a universal indictment of tribalism and the destructive nature of unexamined hatred.
And Romeo's reaction, seeing his best friend slain, is immediate and vengeful. He kills Tybalt, then cries out, "Oh, I'm fortune's fool." It's a sudden, devastating shift from peacemaker back to avenger, driven entirely by grief and rage.
His transformation from peacemaker to avenger is so stark. It highlights the raw, impulsive nature of youth and the corrosive power of revenge. This moment brings us right back to our earlier question. How much are his actions driven by individual choice? His grief, his anger, his desire for vengeance, and how much by that star-crossed destiny mentioned in the prologue? Is he a victim of fate, or is he a victim of his own impulsive nature, exacerbated by the violent culture he lives in? His cry, "Oh, I am fortune's fool," could be seen as an admission of fate's control, or maybe just a lament for a terrible self-inflicted mistake, a moment of profound regret for a choice that will absolutely seal his doom.
The prince arrives again, for the second time, to find yet more bloodshed in his streets. His ultimate judgment for Romeo is banishment. Immediately we do exile him hence.
Ugh.
His life is spared, technically, but his life irrevocably changed.
For Romeo, this banishment is framed by the friar as a mercy, right? A less severe punishment than death. But for Romeo, it is absolute torture. He laments that there is no world without Verona walls, but purgatory, torture, hell itself. He can't imagine life outside Verona without Juliet.
Exactly. He views it as worse than death because it separates him from Juliet, the very center of his new universe. This forces us to consider a really profound question. Is banishment truly worse than death for someone so deeply intertwined with their place, their identity, and most importantly, their love? It speaks to the existential despair of separation and the idea that for some people, life without their beloved, without their true home, is simply no life at all. It highlights how profoundly love can redefine your entire world, making everything outside of it feel like nothing.
What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. That's a line that just continues to resonate, doesn't it? Okay, before we jump into the next really intense part of the story, just a quick reminder, folks, if you're enjoying this deep dive, you can find Artificially Literate on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube as well. Please do follow us for more deep dives into the stories and ideas that shape our understanding of the world. We'd love to have you on. Okay, so with Romeo banished, we turn our attention back to Juliet and her initial reaction to the news of Tybalt's death and Romeo's banishment in Act 3, Scene 2. It's like this chaotic mix of raw emotion, joy that Romeo's alive, shock, fury, profound confusion. She famously uses that string of oxymorons to describe Romeo. Beautiful tyrant, fiend angelical, dove-feathered raven, wolvish ravening lamb. It perfectly captures her internal conflict.
Juliet's emotional roller coaster here is so palpable. It's a real testament to Shakespeare's understanding of human psychology, isn't it? She grapples with this profound conflict between family loyalty, her cousin Tybalt, whom she loved, is dead at Romeo's hand, and her wifely devotion to Romeo, her husband. What's utterly fascinating here, though, is her rapid shift. She goes from cursing Romeo, calling him a fiend angelical, to vehemently defending him almost instantly. She realizes that Tybalt would have killed Romeo, and ultimately, her husband's life is more precious to her now. This moment really showcases her rapid maturity, her fierce loyalty, and the depth of her love, which now surpasses even those conventional family ties. It's a painful moment of choosing one loyalty over another, a choice that, honestly, few people her age would have the strength to make.
And then, as if her world isn't collapsing fast enough, Lady Capulet and Capulet Sr. completely misunderstand the true source of Juliet's profound grief. They respond to her sorrow by hastily deciding to marry her off to Paris on Thursday, thinking it will somehow lift her spirits. Just a desperate, misguided attempt to bring joy.
This decision really highlights the severe parental authority of that era, particularly Capulet's furious outburst when Juliet refuses Paris. He calls her a hang-the-young baggage, disobedient wretch, and threatens to throw her out, let her starve in the streets.
It's brutal.
It is. These parental actions, though maybe well-intentioned from their perspective, they think they're securing a good, socially advantageous match for her. Ironically push Juliet directly towards her most desperate measures. It's a classic example of, good intentions paving the road to ruin. It demonstrates how a profound lack of communication, coupled with rigid control and an inability to truly listen to your child, can tragically backfire. Their actions leave Juliet utterly isolated with absolutely nowhere to turn.
And then the nurse, who has been Juliet's most trusted confidant, her emotional anchor. She makes this pivotal and frankly devastating shift in loyalty. She advises Juliet to just abandon Romeo and marry Paris. She states Romeo is banished and therefore effectively gone, like legally dead almost. She even says, Romeo's a dishclout to him, an eagle, madam, hath not so green, so quick, so fair an eye, as Paris hath. It's just a betrayal of trust on such a fundamental level.
Oh, the nurse's betrayal, from Juliet's perspective, is an absolutely devastating blow. There's no other way to put it. It's pragmatic advice, maybe, but cruel advice, pushing Juliet further into isolation and despair. It severs her last link to adult counsel and understanding. For the nurse, it's about survival and practicality. Paris is available, he's acceptable, Romeo is gone. Basically a legal impossibility now. This raises an important question for us. When does practical advice become a moral failing? The nurse's inability to comprehend Juliet's profound spiritual love and her prioritization of social standing over emotional truth isolates Juliet precisely when she needs unconditional support the most. It's a stark reminder that even those closest to us can sometimes fail to understand the depth of our convictions.
Faced with seemingly no other options, her parents pushing her to Paris, the nurse abandoning her Juliet makes this desperate final plea to Friar Lawrence in Act 4, Scene 1. She threatens immediate suicide if she has to marry Paris. She declares, holding a knife, with this knife I'll help it presently. Her resolve is terrifying.
The friar, seeing her absolute desperation and knowing he, well, inadvertently contributed to her predicament by marrying them in secret, he devises an incredibly ingenious yet monumentally risky sleeping potion plan.
The potion plan?
Yes, he details its chilling effects. A cold and drowsy humor, no pulse, no warmth, no breath, lasting for a very precise 2 and 40 hours, a time window that's absolutely crucial to the plan's success. The plan is for her to fake her death, be laid in the ancient Capulet vault, and then Romeo, informed by the friar via letter, will retrieve her in Mantua and they can escape together to a new life.
It's just an incredibly elaborate and dangerous scheme, isn't it? Built on so many precarious moving parts. It feels almost destined to go wrong from the start.
It absolutely does. This really highlights the friar's continued reliance on these complex secret schemes rather than trying direct, open communication with the families, maybe. If we zoom out for a moment and connect this to the bigger picture, what are the ethical implications of the friar's actions as a religious figure? He is a spiritual guide, a man of peace, yet he's resorting to deception, manipulation, this near-fatal trickery. Convinced that the end goal, peace between the families, justifies these extreme means, it forces us to question the boundaries of intervention and responsibility, especially when you're attempting to mend these deep-seated societal rifts. His compassion is clear, but his methods are highly, highly debatable.
Before taking the potion in Act 4, Scene 3, Juliet has this incredible, agonizing soliloquy. It's full of inner turmoil and profound fear. She imagines waking up too early, being stifled in the vault, or even going mad among the ancestors' bones and Tybalt's rotting corpse.
It's terrifying imagery.
It is. She even envisions, "Oh, look, methinks I see my cousin's ghost. Seeking out Romeo. Romeo, Romeo, Romeo. Here's drink. I drink to thee." And she drinks, sealing her fate for the time being.
This soliloquy is Juliet's moment of profound courage and terror, and it's just a testament to Shakespeare's psychological insight. It's such a stark contrast to Romeo's more dramatic laments earlier. Juliet's fear is raw, internal, visceral, yet her resolve is utterly unyielding. She confronts her deepest, most primal fears: suffocation, madness, being surrounded by the dead, seeing Tybalt's ghost, all for the sake of her love. It showcases her remarkable growth from the naive girl we met at the beginning into a woman of incredible fortitude and an almost terrifying determination in the face of these insurmountable odds. She walks into that darkness fully aware of the horrors that might be waiting for her.
And then comes the crucial tragic failure, the ultimate misstep that seals their doom. Friar John, who is tasked with delivering the vital letter to Romeo explaining the whole plan, gets quarantined because of the plague outbreak. The letter never reaches Romeo.
This is the definitive moment, isn't it? Where unforeseen circumstances and simple miscommunication become the major driving force of the tragedy. It's not malice or ill intent, it's a random external event, the plague, that completely derails the entire desperate plan and seals their fate. It's a stark reminder of how fragile even the most well-laid plans can be. This raises a sobering question for us all. How often do major events in life hinge on tiny, uncontrollable details, on simple failures of communication that just cascade into catastrophe? It reminds us of the fragility of even the most elaborate human intentions when confronted with the unpredictable chaos of the world. It's a devastating irony that the very thing meant to save them, the message, is blocked by a force completely beyond anyone's control.
Meanwhile, in Mantua, Romeo's just had a dream about Juliet reviving him with a kiss, a cruel, almost unbearable irony given what's about to happen. Then he receives the devastating, misinformed news from his servant Balthazar. Her body sleeps in Cabell's monument, and her immortal part with angels lives. He hears she's dead. No mention of the potion, no mention of the plan, just dead.
Romeo's immediate response is this outburst of defiance. "Then I defy you, stars!" He makes a swift, desperate, and ultimately fatal decision to buy poison from an apothecary. He's reacting not to some deliberate plan of the universe, but to what he perceives as a direct, crushing challenge from destiny itself. His defiance, however, tragically aligns him with the very fate he seeks to reject. He thinks he's taking control, but he's actually just walking right into the trap fate has laid for him. His impetuousness, that recurring flaw, becomes the decisive factor here.
He finds this poor, desperate apothecary and utters these powerful lines about gold being worse poison to men's souls than the physical poison he's buying. He tells the apothecary, "There's thy gold worse poison to men's souls. I sell thee poison, thou hast sold me none." It's such a bitter indictment of poverty and desperation.
It's a really profound moment of social commentary embedded within the personal tragedy, isn't it? Romeo perceives poison not just as the literal drug he's purchasing, but as economic hardship, the corrosive effects of the societal feud, and perhaps even his own impulsive, destructive pride. He recognizes that the apothecary's extreme poverty forces him to break the law, just as the rigid societal structures have poisoned his own happiness and the lives of everyone around him. How does this reflect a broader commentary on societal ills, where desperation can drive individuals to tragic acts? Romeo sees the financial transaction as a metaphor for the deeper corruption and inequity of their world, where material desire and need can be just as deadly as any potion.
Back in Verona, Paris, still utterly devoted to Juliet, is at her tomb, mourning her supposed death when Romeo arrives. Their paths, destined to cross it seems, collide one last time. They fight, and Paris is tragically killed, his dying wish being to be laid next to Juliet in the tomb.
As Romeo lays Paris in the monument, we reach his final, most heartbreaking moments. He sees Juliet's preserved beauty, even there in the tomb. Beauty's ensign yet is crimson in thy lips and in thy cheeks, and death's pale flag is not advanced there.
He sees she still looks alive.
Exactly. And what's utterly fascinating and profoundly tragic here is Romeo's heartbreaking misinterpretation of her beauty. He sees it as a sign of death's love for her, that death keeps her beautiful to be his paramour, rather than the obvious sign that she's about to wake up. The dramatic irony is almost unbearable for us, the audience, knowing how excruciatingly close they are to a different outcome, to a miraculous reunion. His poetic blindness, fueled by overwhelming grief, seals his fate.
He then seals his own fate with a final desperate kiss, uttering his last words. Here's to my love, O true apothecary, thy drugs are quick, thus with a kiss I die.
And this is the ultimate heart-wrenching tragic timing. Juliet wakes mere moments after Romeo takes a poison, just as Friar Lawrence arrives at the tomb. She opens her eyes to find her beloved husband dead beside her, the empty cup still in his hand. It's just a brutal, precise confluence of mischance and impulsive action. It feels like a cosmic joke played at the most agonizing moment possible. Their star-crossed destiny truly manifests here, maybe not as an unchangeable script, but as a series of near misses and tragic delays.
Juliet's awakening, finding Romeo dead, is swiftly followed by her own quick, decisive action. Seeing his empty cup, she then finds his dagger. She delivers her final iconic lines, "O happy dagger, this is thy sheath, there rust and let me die."
Her resolution, her immediate pragmatic choice to end her life, it contrasts sharply with Romeo's more dramatic, poetic demise. While Romeo performs his death with these grand gestures and words, Juliet is resolute, clear-eyed, and utterly pragmatic in her final act. She embraces death as the only way left to be reunited with her love. It highlights her strength and her agency, particularly for a young woman of her time, in taking control of her own end, rather than allowing fate or others to dictate it. She is, in her death, as powerful and determined as she was in her love.
The watch, the prince, the Capulets, and eventually Montague then arrive to find this horrifying scene. The two young lovers dead, and Paris dead beside them too.
And the truth finally begins to unravel. Through the friar's confession, Balthazar's testimony, and the letter Romeo wrote. If we connect this to the bigger picture again, what does it reveal about the fundamental importance of open communication and trust in preventing tragedy? All the secrecy, all the missteps, all the withheld truths finally come to light, but only after it's far, far too late. It's a powerful, wrenching lesson that unexamined prejudices and fundamental failures of communication can be just as destructive as outright violence. It's like a mirror reflecting how often we might cling to grudges until an unbearable loss finally forces us to see the folly of our ways.
The play ends with the family's overwhelming realization and finally reconciliation. Capulet and Montague shake hands and vow to erect golden statues of their children. Capulet says, "Poor sacrifices of our enmity, a peace bought at just an unimaginable cost."
This is the heavy, agonizing price of peace. The reconciliation only happens after the ultimate unbearable sacrifice of their children, the poor sacrifices of our enmity. This raises a profound and unsettling question for us. Does tragedy always need to be this absolute, this devastating, to force fundamental change and understanding between warring factions? It's a sobering thought that sometimes, perhaps, the only way to end a conflict is through an unbearable loss that makes the continuation of animosity simply unthinkable. The profound grief finally breaks through the ancient hatred, but at an unspeakable cost, reminding us of the devastating power of inherited conflict and the human capacity for self-destruction.
For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. That line, the play's final couplet, truly captures the essence of this enduring, heartbreaking tale.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating here, stepping back, is not just the intense love and the tragic death, but how all these forces, societal division, individual choices, pure mischance, just intertwine. It compels you, I think, to consider in your own life where maybe ancient grudges or inherited biases or just quick judgments might be quietly shaping outcomes around you. How might different choices or simply better communication and maybe less impulsiveness shift the traffic of our stage, as Shakespeare puts it, towards a different, perhaps less tragic ending? It's a timeless lesson in the profound impact of our actions and our inactions within the larger narrative of our lives.
For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. Well, thank you so much to everyone who joined us for this deep dive on Artificially Literate. We really hope you found some new insights into this timeless masterpiece. Be sure to check out our other episodes for more thought-provoking discussions. Please follow us on your favorite podcast platform for more topics like this, and stay tuned for our next book. Until then, remember, feed your brain, starve your inner fool.